I've been getting a lot of questions around how I've wired my HX Stomp and my TONEX pedal board together. And honestly, I think this is a super lethal combination because both of these pedals help complement each other really well. And in this video, I'll guide you through what you need to know for sending MIDI signals to the TONEX, how to adjust amps when you switch to presets or snapshots, different wiring configurations, and a whole lot more. So let's go ahead and let's dive in. So the way I've got this set up is my HX Stomp is basically the brains of this pedal board. Now I've got a more detailed video highlighting the overdrives and how I'm using that. But for this video, I'll largely just talk about the HX Stomp and the TONEX together. And in this case, when I switch to a different preset, it is sending MIDI signals out to my TONEX. My TONEX is acting as my amp, and then I'm using the effects loop inside of the HX Stomp, not only to be able to use my overdrive section, but also to be able to go in and have some effects before my effects loop and then having some wet effects after. And really the main reason I love this is it's an insanely versatile rig. And for you guys, if you want to set something up like this, it's pretty easy to do, and hopefully this video gives you everything you need to know to be able to do this for your own TONEX or the TONEX 1, and I'll talk about some of the caveats here in a bit. Now, just as a base reference, just to show you some of the different sounds that I've got dialed in, the TONEX ProSonic here, this is the Tone Shepherd ProSonic Capture, and then this is a really clean and kind of chimey preset. Which sounds really great, but the reason I love this is because I can do those worship and kind of ambient sounds, but I can also do stuff that sounds a little bit beefier, gained up, kind of more Andy Timmons. Or I've even got kind of a metal patch that's downloaded as well. That sounds really sweet. But hopefully what you can see really quickly is it's a super versatile rig, it's fun to use, and it's easy to set up. So in this case, I've got my HX Stomp set up where the guitar is going to the input of the stomp, and then I've got some effects before the effects loop, such as a compressor, overdrive, trem, chorus, etc. You could throw a reverb in there if you like your wet effects before your amp as well. And then from there, I'm sending out from the effects loop to my overdrive section, which is hitting the front of the TONEX, back into the effects loop, and then my HX Stomp is then having all of my different wet effects. And then from there, probably the second most asked question is around the input of the HX Stomp and then using the effects loop. Which one's better and does it color your sound? And in this case, I found that I do enjoy the effects loop largely because of the different wiring configurations and signal chain options that I can have, but it does end up coloring your sound and it will adjust the way your guitar's impedance responds with your pedals. So just for a quick reference, the HX Stomp input is going to respond normally just exactly like you would expect for your guitar. So what this means, and what I've seen a lot of people do then, is they'll run, let's say, their pedal board and then their TONEX into the input of the HX Stomp and then just use their stomp for, effects loop post amp. That works super, super well. You can absolutely do that. What I noticed is, especially when it comes to fuzz style pedals or pedals that are going to be higher output, that's where you'll notice the biggest difference in terms of the feel. And then from there, the effects loop only has 1 mega ohm of impedance resistance. But what that means is if you are using something like a fuzz pedal, you'll notice that it just responds differently to the way you touch and feel. It sounds a little different as well. And what I would ultimately say is it's normally not bad. And I think for my playing style and what I enjoy playing, I've not noticed it to be something that has been detrimental to my signal chain. And so I think for you, you'll largely just have to play around between the input and the effects loop and see which one you like best. So really it comes down to what you enjoy, and ultimately I decided to go with the effects loop largely because I wanted the flexibility to be able to control the different wiring configuration and where I've got my amp inside of this signal chain. So from here I've got my effects loop kind of right in the middle. The nice thing is I can literally move that wherever I want on the HX Stomp. And so that gives me a ton of flexibility. If I want to run a wah pedal before my amp, if I want to run an octave pedal, I can add that. Whereas if I was to use the Tonex and hit the input of the HX Stomp, then I'm going to be really limited in terms of what can come after. Which, if you've already got those style of pedals on your pedal board, that may be okay for you. You might be all right with that. But personally, for what I needed with this board, this is ultimately kind of what I went with. So hopefully that's helpful, maybe clears things up a little bit. And now let's dive into controlling the Tonex with MIDI from the HX Stomp. All right, so this has to be my favorite part about this pedal board, and like I've already kind of displayed, the way I've got it set up here is when I switch to a different preset on my HX Stomp, it will send a MIDI signal out to the Tonex and adjust the amp from there. But I've also got it set up in such a way too, where for some of my presets, if I bank up to a different snapshot, it can also send MIDI signals out and adjust the amp from there. So this is really easy to set up, and all we have to do is just make sure that both of the HX Stomp and the Tonex are going to be set up for the first bank. So to do that on the HX Stomp, you would go into your command center, go into global settings, scroll over to MIDI and make sure it's bass channel 1. And then for your Tonex, all you have to do is hold the setup option here. And then all we have to do is hold the select button, go to global setup for our Tonex, scroll all the way over, MIDI channel, and just make sure that's set to 1. Now from there, inside of our HX Stomp, when we go into our different snapshot settings, what we'll do is go up to our command center. And here we can see that we've got it set up for MIDI channel 1 and then program 39. So all I have to do here is just match whatever the program number is for the Tonex. I've not found a great way to find this besides plugging in my Tonex and looking at the librarian. And when you pull that up, you can see on the right what the actual Tonex number is to send the signal to. And then when I go to my second snapshot here for my ambient sound, when we go back to Command Center, we can see I'm setting to program 42. And this gives me the option to switch to different amps within one preset. If I just want to use it where I'm just switching, let's say from one preset to a different preset, and I just want to switch amps, that's still really easy to do as well. And all we have to do when we set up our rig is go to that command center, send a MIDI channel 1, and then just choose the program number that we want to switch to. And what that will do is just tell our HX Stomp when we switch to that preset to automatically jump to that bank or that specific capture within the Tonex automatically. And then one thing I would strongly recommend is if you are using your HX Stomp, getting some sort of external controller. This one is from Pedalnetics, and I love it because it just sits right on top of my HX Stomp. It doesn't take up any additional real estate on my pedal board. And I think this is amazing because what it allows me to do is I've banked it where foot switch number 4 actually switches between different snapshots on my HX Stomp. And so I can adjust multiple parameters, effects, and blocks all at once. And then I've got foot switch number 5 here, where it goes in and I've got my tap tempo and my tuner. Now in a live situation, I do still have to go in and I've just got to simply bank and move the different preset button here to swap between my presets. That's what will adjust the MIDI signals going out to the Tonex, and I'm perfectly fine with that. I think it gives me what I need, and for most situations, if I do need to switch amps in a live situation, that's where I will go in and set it up so that my individual preset has snapshots where it can go in and switch to different amps while I'm using that one particular preset. Hopefully that's pretty clear. If you have questions, let me know down in the comments. But all in all, I absolutely love this rig. I think it's super cool. It's really fun to play with, and it gives me a ton of tonal variety. And check out this video right here on my full pedal board, and I'll see you guys next time.